All right. Just telling me that new team logos tattooed on my arm. And I am going to have to disagree. First things first, I know everybody's talking about it. The Arrogant Americans got a new logo, got no uniforms. It's a pretty big deal. That's why it's on the top of Leo's mind. He's saying I should get these stars tattooed on me.
Yeah, on your forearms.
My wife would divorce me. I think that might be a deal breaker.
I mean, you can cover them up during job interviews.
Yeah. I mean, you wear long sleeves to court.
Yeah. Yeah.
I went away from Uncle Sam flipping the bird as the logo. I think at 34, it was time to give that up.
That wasn't due to the current political state, the election, being an election year?
No, but at some point, I had considered team entirely for this season, just so that I would never be confused as a Trump supporter. But I couldn't think of a good name and logo and all that. And I know that nobody in our league is going to confuse me for a Trump supporter.
No one in the league will.
No. Let's see. Last week, Pyle remained undefeated. Finch knocked off Duffy in a big way. And so this week, we got number 1 versus number 2 with Finch and Pyle. Of course, we're talking about the NFC, and the standings are Pyle in first place, Finch in second place. I am very lucky to be in third place with my low point total. And then you've got Cobb, Schmidt, Duffy. That would be the playoffs if they started right now. And then we've got the Whackers. That's Morgan. Then we've got Leal, Norman Nobodies, Trevillo, Jessen, Bruce in 11th, Henderson in 12th. Yancey and Rogers are both winless. Have you seen Rogers' strength of schedule?
Yes, I have. I looked at it today because I was considering that trade with him.
Yeah, it's a historically tough schedule. Let's see. Yeah, opponents are averaging 175 points against Rogers. And against Pyle, let's see, they are averaging 120. Now, Pyle also has the most points in the league, so it's not like he's just skating by because of an easy schedule, but the easy schedule has definitely helped.
Yeah.
Right behind Rogers, Yancey has a very difficult schedule. Opponents have scored 215 more points against him than they've scored against Pyle. So Pyle and Rogers have got it really bad. I think at this point it's very unlikely to make the playoffs. I hate to call a team out this early in the season. 0-5, man, that's a tough hole.
Yeah, that is. First of all, with a league our size, there's really not a lot you can do to really add the players that you would need to even consider running the table.
Yeah, it would take a miracle. Yeah, if they went 7-1 down the stretch, that's still 7-6.
Yeah.
And you're relying on points to try and get one of those last playoff spots.
Yeah.
But the nobodies winning 3 in a row, back in it.
Yeah, we're getting back in there. I thought about doing a trade with the Ammo Dogs today, but then thought differently for that quarterback spot that I've got Jameis Winston on a bye week for. So I decided against a trade that would have. I was going to offer. I was just going to do a straight up trade. Jameis Winston for Carson Wentz was what I was going to offer. And then right before I sent it, I feel bad because I'd sent Rodgers a text saying, "Hey, I'm sending you a trade." And then after looking at things and seeing what was out there and long-term stuff for the season, I changed my mind and ended up sending him a text saying, "Never mind." I never got anything back from him, so I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure there's somebody you can pick up for that 1 week.
I ended up picking up Brock Osweiler.
Well, I mean, that's a shitty quarterback, but it's only 1 week.
Yeah, I just got him for a game. Luckily I'm going against Baldwin. So
yeah, but Baldwin is favored.
I saw that, and for some reason I had looked at that because I want to say it was that, I don't know. For some reason I feel like that was what the projection was before I had even added Osweiler into the lineup. So I don't know. I also did change some other people around the tight end spot mainly. So,
well, Yancey's got Russell Wilson back from bye, going up against an Atlanta defense that's given up a lot in the passing game. Golden Tate has not been very good, but Michael Crabtree has. Robert Woods is ostensibly the number 1 receiver now that Sammy Watkins is out. Todd Gurley is back on track. Jordan Howard is a starting running back right now, and he gets Jamal Charles back from injury. So you put that on top of Kelsey at tight end and Garcon as other flex spot. Certainly doesn't look like an 0-5 team, but I mean, part of the reason they were 0-5 is because one of his early round picks, Jamal Charles, was injured. Todd Gurley was playing horribly. Didn't have anybody for that second running back spot for a while. And then last week, Russell Wilson was on bye. So he may very well break through and win this one, and it wouldn't be a surprise.
Yeah, it wouldn't be a surprise to me either. One of the biggest things that I've noticed is especially with, and hopefully it kind of works out to my advantage, but I mean, when you've got Russell Wilson as the quarterback for your other team who's coming back, hopefully he can connect with one of his wide receivers, Tyler Lockett, that's on my team. But, I mean, when you really look at that, that's kind of just a wash. So I'm going to really try to – hopefully my running backs have good games. And then Tavon Austin has had a few weeks. Week 3 was good. Week 5 wasn't bad. So we'll see. Hopefully some of his guys just underperform, Yeah.
Well, I'm playing the other 0-5 team. They're also favored against me. The Ammo Dogs, it doesn't look like an 0-5 team on paper. Andrew Luck at quarterback, Devontae Parker, Allen Robinson, and Brandon Cooks at receiver, Isaiah Crowell and LeGarrette Blount at running back, Delaney Walker, Mike Wallace, and Tajay Sharp. With the exception of Sharp, I think it's a really good roster. I think we're all surprised that it's an 0-5 team. And I've got Arian Foster. I don't think I'm going to play because it's his first game back. Dante Moncrief is still injured. The rest of my team has done just enough so far to get to 4-1, but it's certainly not been dominant. We won our last 2 games by about 3 points each. So you and I could be the ones that give the winless teams their first victories.
Well, I definitely hope not, but I mean, it happens. That's part of the game.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out what to do with my defense. Cincinnati got smoked last week against the Cowboys, and they're playing at New England this week. I like their schedule the rest of the way, but I feel there's got to be somebody better for this week.
Yeah, there might be. I haven't gone and looked to see who's out there for defense-wise, but there might be, and you've got some players that you could let go.
Yeah, if I had to, I could let go Rawls or maybe Ivory at this point. I've been holding on to him for so long. I just don't know if he's going to do it.
Well, I'm hoping he doesn't, just because I've got that other piece. So,
yeah. And by the way, Rodgers has been without Sammy Watkins and Jonathan Stewart due to injury, so that certainly hasn't helped either.
No.
But and if I can get to 5-1, I mean that'll be fantastic. It'll be a minor miracle, but I'll take it. Has got to be Pyle versus Finch, number 1 versus number 2. I mean, both of these guys are projected for over 150. Pyle for over 160. The weak spot for Finch continues to be tight end. He's got a fantastic and starting lineup, but the tight end position has just, I mean, he's Jacob Tammy and CJ Feodorovics, or I mean, I really think that Finch is one tight end away from really running with this.
Yeah, and tight end, they're a commodity in our league. I've noticed being tight end 4, like I did 4.
Yeah, you're kind of in the same boat. I've got Pitta and Ertz, but due to injuries, I've had to start both of them. And unless you're starting Gronkowski and Greg Olsen, you don't want to start 2 tight ends.
Yeah. Or Martellus.
Yeah. Man, I thought I was going to lose last week. I was going against Henderson. I had 2 guys score 0 points. And he had Martellus Bennett, who got 30. But I ended up winning, I think, by about 4.5 because he had Carolina defense Monday night, and I was up 8. So it came down to Carolina blowing a lead or just giving up points, and they did it. They did it enough for me to win. So I felt bad winning with 125 points. I think there were 2 teams that scored over 160 and lost.
Yeah, and in this game between Pyle and Finch, I keep looking at this matchup of Antonio Brown against Miami's defense, and I kind of like it. That might be one of those games where he maybe hits a week like he did his first week and gets over 30.
Yeah. Have you seen Pyle's?
Yeah. There was a cooler. Now, didn't you have this cooler without the logos at the draft party?
Yeah, so I had this cooler. I got it at Sam's Club, and I mean, I didn't even really pay attention to the colors. It was just the only one they had, and I wanted a cooler with wheels on it. And at the draft, Pyle said, "Man, that cooler, that thing's in lucky enough colors. Look at it. It's blue, silver, and neon green." Oh yeah, I guess so. So he offered to buy it from me at cost. He took it back to Anadarko because, Anadarko doesn't have a Sam's. So I couldn't just say, "Oh, go to Sam's." He went to some decal place there in Darko and got these made, and they look pretty good.
Oh, I thought he had ordered the logos from the online store.
No, he went to some local place, and I mean, it's probably better that way because these are thick vinyl.
Oh, okay.
And the ones from the online store, they're not customizable as far as the size goes.
Oh.
And so he was able to say, "I want this exact size." But it looks good, and it got me wanting one. I can't let Pyle outdo me. So I've been pricing decals here in Oklahoma City so I can reclaim my spot as the most fanatical manager.
Now, can you find an ice chest like this in your team colors?
Well, Deanne and we bought one to replace it that is blue and white. So like where the green ring is on Pyle's, that is white on mine, and the top is white. So I might end up painting that ring around the top red, and then just adding the logos to the top and the front.
Just to win hands down, no questions asked, undisputed, you could just go buy a white Yeti 110 and put a logo on it, and I think you would definitely win then.
How much are those?
Over $200.
That's what I thought. I'm going to stick with my Walmart cooler.
The Igloo.
Yeah. I don't know if they make them in blue and orange, but maybe we can get you one set up someday.
Who could pull off the Yeti is Yeti makes one of their coolers in like a really light, almost like a pastel blue. I could see Peacock taking one of those colors and putting his logo on that, along with his company logo, because you might as well.
Yeah, I mean that's on everything. He got the helmet.
Nice.
Yeah, he said it's pretty sweet. So he's gonna get a case ordered for it, and those things are really cheap. But I guess that's enough for that little detour. Going back to the matchup we were discussing, I think you're right that Antonio Brown is going to carve up that Miami defense. And I'm not sure Julio Jones will do the same to Seattle.
Yeah, probably not. I mean, he was held in check last week by Denver, and Denver's cornerbacks, to me, aren't as prestigious as the ones in Seattle.
Yeah. I'm still going to pick Kyle to win because I like the rest of his roster more. But these are both rooms, and at this point, they're probably the two favorites with Duffy being right behind them.
Yeah, I'm going to pick the hard targets in this one.
Duffy has cooled off a little bit after his 3-0 start. He's lost 2 straight, but have any big bye week players this week? Cobb, who honestly is lucky to be 3-2, and I think the Hangovers win this one pretty easily. I mean, they're favored by 30. Cobb is starting Cole Beasley and a 40-year-old Andre Johnson.
I didn't know that he had been signed by anybody.
Yeah, he signed with the Titans in the offseason, and before week 1, Cobb offered me Derek Carr for Andre Johnson because I drafted Johnson in I think it was the 18th round. And my reasoning was, there weren't any other receivers in Tennessee that I thought were really great. And Andre Johnson's a pro. He's done it so long. Just based on pure technique, he might fall into some production. So I drafted him, and then Cobb offered me Derek Carr for him, and I couldn't turn that down. It was like trading an 18th round pick for an 8th round pick.
Yeah.
I mean, that name recognition, man.
Yeah. He what has he done? He hadn't broken 10 yet. He's got 2 touchdowns on the year.
Yeah. I mean, I certainly think Cobb is regretting the trade, but
and of course, Marcus Mariota is really not lighting it on fire with touchdown passes this year either.
No, but his actual starting quarterback is Drew Brees.
Oh, okay.
So he doesn't necessarily need Carr, but he certainly could have got more for Carr. But, he offered me the trade, and that's who he wanted. And to him, Carr was just a backup quarterback. So, I mean, it wasn't anything nefarious. I think it was just poor evaluation on his part.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Duffy moves on.
Yeah. Your rival, Morgan, is 3-2, like yourself, and he's facing Jessen this week. I think Morgan's gotten here just on the back of Matt Ryan and Marvin Jones.
Yes, he has.
He traded away Brandon Marshall, and then I think the next day Des Bryant was injured. So definitely could have a better team at this point, but he's 3-2. Jessen is 2-3 and had some bad luck. Of course, he didn't have Brady for the first 4 weeks, but he's got him now. He traded for David Johnson. Gronkowski is back. He picked up Cameron Meredith this week. So Jessen, it may be in a position to make a playoff run. We're certainly not going to count him out, and I think he'll probably win this week.
Yeah, I do too. With getting Tom Brady back and then getting Gronkowski back, looking at the stats that he put up week 3 and 4, I mean, you might as well say he was out 4 weeks as well, and came back last week and had a good game. He also has Sterling Shepard, who came out, crazy with double-digit performances, and then has kind of cooled off this last two weeks. Still averaging, 7, 8, 9 targets a game, but for some reason he's just not getting them. I don't know if it's because of the coverage, but maybe he can bounce back as well. But I like Jessen to win this game. I think Gronkowski will overperform as well as Tom Brady.
Hey, by the way, did we talk about the Fantasyland podcast?
No, we did not.
I'm assuming you listened to it.
I did. Right after you had sent it out, I sat at my kitchen table with a couple of beers and really enjoyed it.
Yeah, so I'm sure our listeners right now are wondering what we're talking about.
We have hundreds?
No, we don't.
Oh.
Rotoviz.com has a podcast called Fantasyland. I learned about it I think on CBS Sports Fantasy Podcast. One of the hosts said he had done a segment with this new show called Fantasyland, and he described it as like an NPR Radiolab show about fantasy. I love NPR. I love Radiolab. So I checked it out, and I thought it was great. It's about a topic. It's not, which players to pick up and things like that. It's, okay, what's one thing we love about fantasy sports? Now let's devote an episode to it and learn everything about it. Like the first episode was about spreadsheets and like really how when whoever the hell it was created Excel, like that really did jumpstart the fantasy industry. And it's something you don't think about. One was about girls that play fantasy, and some really good anecdotes in that one. One was about how Roto World got started. And, you read all the player updates, and it said at the beginning, like, it was one guy that wrote all of those. Like, he didn't have a set schedule. He was, like, basically 24 hours a day. Whenever there was any news, he would log on and type it in and do a little player blurb. So that's a really good episode if you want to listen to others. But after those first few episodes, I saw that it was still a relatively unknown podcast, and at least when you compare it to all these other fantasy football podcasts. And I sent him a quick email and said, hey, I just want you to know I really love the show, and I hope you keep doing it. And by the way, if you're ever looking for a topic, my league uses this as a way to keep in touch with guys we went to war with, and I'm sure we're not the only ones. And they said, hey, glad you enjoy the show. Thanks so much. And then it was a few months later, they contacted me out of the blue and said, hey, we're going to take you up on that. We want to do an episode on the veterans that play fantasy football together. And so that's how this episode happened. They put over 100 man hours into it. And I mean, it was only 35 minutes. It could have been so much longer. But what stood out to you? What was the funny parts to you?
Well, here in the comments, just going back, because they played a lot of clips from our actual draft, and just hearing those played again, just made me want to fast forward the year to where it's that time again, just so I could get back there. And then there's something very stoic, I guess, about listening to Duffy when you can't see him.
Kind of like a disembodied voice.
Yeah. But while I was sitting there listening to it, I thought, man, it would be really cool if some of these people that do these stories came with us, like came to the cabin next year, and got to kind of see firsthand, what we mean by really, really talking shit to each other. And just, to me, it's something that's almost, it's unexplainable. I think the only person that I've ever talked to it about just the experience, that I truly know understands what I'm talking about would probably be my dad. But yeah, it's just hard to really describe the relationship that we all have when we get around each other, even though we haven't seen each other in over a year, sometimes more than that. So I think it'd be really cool if we could bring one of these groups of people or one of these guys along with us one year.
Yeah, this guy, I would have said, hey, come on out. But the weekend we were doing our draft, he was in Las Vegas for the super high stakes fantasy football draft weekend. I mean, it's crazy. It's some season long league that I think it's $1,000 buy-in, and the grand prize is like $1 million or something.
Jeez.
So yeah, he was out in Vegas all weekend covering that draft, and I'm sure he had a blast. And that's what their next episode is about. It's about high stakes season long leagues with people you don't really know, but kind of you get the best part of DFS, and that there's money involved, but it's also season long, so it's not just a matter of getting lucky that 1 week. But I'll put some feelers out and see if he wants to come next year. I mean, we'd love to show him a good time.
Oh yeah, especially if he's, I don't know, more from the city. I know I've got a brother-in-law who's from New York City. Grew up in Manhattan, and whenever he moved to Oklahoma, and he's adapted well, I will give him that. But just kind of having him listen to how we do things down here is pretty funny. And then his parents retired and have always lived in Manhattan, and they moved to Norman a year or two ago because to be closer to the grandkids. So it's real interesting to always talk to his mom and dad whenever I see them, to see all the new Oklahoma things that they've discovered.
Yeah. Well, this guy is originally from Denver. So being from Colorado, I'm sure I would think he's done a lot of outdoorsy things. I don't know. I mean, I'm not a super outdoors guy myself, but I mean, I probably am compared to some folks on the East Coast. So if you, for some reason, have not heard that yet, you can Google RotoViz Fantasyland, or you can go to our website, and it's okaraki.org/Fantasyland, and I've got it embedded on our website there. What I was really hoping he put in there, I mean, it's not so much that this is the one element that I wanted to convey to the listeners, but when I was listening to the draft day audio, the thing that really made me laugh out loud was when Jessen, well, called Jessen a bad soldier, and Jessen said, "You're the worst soldier here. I didn't get shot. I didn't get shot in Iraq. You did, and you didn't finish your job. You didn't complete the mission." And I mean, I was cracking up listening to it because I mean, it sounds awful, but I mean, us, but it is pretty fucked up.
Yeah, it is. Like if just an outsider were to hear that, I mean, they would just be all sorts of offended.
Yeah, I mean, if some stranger said, "Oh, you got shot by a sniper," man, you must be a bad soldier. You weren't doing your job. You didn't finish the whole year. We'd all be pissed.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, they did a great job conveying the camaraderie at the draft party, and I thought one thing they really did a good job with was sharing the story from the viewpoint of those that have been there from day one and those that joined after Kilman's funeral, and then somebody like Gray who doesn't even really like football that much, but just jumped on the chance to get back involved with the guys and has grown to love the league because of just the way that it keeps us in touch. And if he wanted to find, he could have interviewed the 6 or 7 people with the most experience in the oil, or the 6 or 7 people that are the most into fantasy, but that wouldn't have adequately explained the full breadth of its effect, like interviewing people that hadn't been a part of it until just recently. And I'm really grateful to be a part now, and guys that don't even really like fantasy that much, but are growing to. So hats off to the Fantasyland guys. Schuster was hilarious on the show, like usual. Zerger had some good points.
Mm-hmm.
Venable didn't like hearing that he's the villain.
Yeah. He may not have liked it, but I'm pretty sure he's having some fun with it.
Yeah. Speaking of guys that are really getting into it, Little Baldwin, man, that guy is like messaging me all the time now about fantasy. And he had never played before he joined. He said he didn't play because he thought it was gambling. He doesn't gamble, which I understand. I don't gamble either, but what we do is not gambling.
Yeah.
I think that guy is 3-2. I think he's in 4th place or something. And he was asking me advice on, should I keep, these 2 kickers because my kicker's got a bye week? Should I keep these 2 defenses? What about the other players? And I was telling him, do what you want to do, but most experts recommend you just carry 1 because they're easily replaceable. And he's like downloading apps and everything, so I'm glad Baldwin is in the fold. He said there's a possibility that he and his wife might move back to Oklahoma.
I was just about to say that we should try to find a way to get him down here next year.
Yeah. I really hope that he at least comes to the draft next year. But on that note, let's go check out his matchup. I've yet to have somebody complain to me about which we discuss these leagues or do. So around. Yeah, so this week, the two guys we were just talking about, Gray play each other. Gray is favored at the moment because Steve Smith in the lineup and he is out. But I'm dropping a second kicker and second defense for Davante Adams and Marquise Goodwin. So, Adams has played really well. I mean, he had 19 points last week. Goodwin could break out with Watkins injured. I mean, it's just everybody. Don't carry two kickers and two defenses when there's somebody like Davante Adams available. Gray just lost his first game last week against Tadlock. He's 4-1. He's got his kicker on bye this week. That's it. But he's still got a good team. Tom Brady, Jarvis Landry, Julian Edelman, the surprisingly good Will Fuller, Todd Gurley, James White is coming on with Brady in the fold. Martellus Bennett is still catching touchdowns. Jamison Crowder and Devontae Parker. Jimmy Graham and Rashad Perriman on the bench. He's got Drew Brees as a trading chip. Something if Gray won this thing.
Yeah, it would. And I meant to talk about this during the last matchup we looked at, but I also really like Pittsburgh's defense against Miami.
Yeah, Tannehill has been awful.
Yeah, he really has. So, keep an eye out for that defense to possibly get up into the double digits this week.
Yeah, so that's the Blue Falcons and the Drifters. Tadlock, I guess the game of the week would be Tadlock and Cordis. By the way, at the draft, was that your first time meeting Tadlock?
Yes.
Pretty good guy. Was in the 158. Still may be for all I know, but deployed with them after we deployed with them. And certainly knows his stuff and is sitting in first place, playing third-ranked Sixers. Looks like once he replaces his defense, he'll be favored again. Cordis is 3-2. If he pulled this one out, he'd probably jump into second, if not first place. But Cordis is another guy that was not at the draft. That he was at the draft 2 years ago and had a blast, and I hope we see him next year.
Yeah, absolutely. And looking at this, I like both teams. I wouldn't be able.
Yeah, it's really tough to pick one.
Yeah, I guess if there was one thing, would be Julio Jones. Wondering if he will perform against that Seattle defense. Would be a question mark there. And then Rodgers at tight end in the Sixers' other flex spot. I picked him up last week, and I was very disappointed. So,
yeah, it's gonna be a close one. Could go either way. Certainly, two of the top teams. Over in the AFC, think it was the AFC that has. It's got the Redlegs, and number 4 Steel Rain. That's Zerger and Fitzgerald. And at the moment, Zerger is favored by. But that tells me Fitzgerald probably has some buys.
Yeah.
Looking at his, he can put Drew Brees back in there, put Christian Michael back in there. But he's still, remember, this is the team that had so many injuries. He's got Amir Abdullah, Jonathan Stewart, and Corey Coleman still on the bench. Willie Snead coming back. So this will be a much closer matchup than it looks like right now. But Zerger's got a good team, man. He's projected for 150, and that's with Mike Evans on a bye.
Yeah, he does have a good team. And with some surprise players, too. I would have never have thought that of course, I didn't think that Terrell Pryor, I thought he was going to play second fiddle to Josh Gordon, but, I mean, we all see what happened to him. But
I drafted Pryor. I thought that he would do pretty well, at least the first 4 weeks while Gordon was out. And then I dropped Pryor for Dwayne Washington, as there were reports that Washington could take the Lions running back position and run with it. I dropped Pryor, and later that day, Corey Coleman broke his hand. And then I think it was the next day or 2 days later, Josh Gordon said he was going to enter rehab.
Yeah.
And then Pryor just started going off, and I'm still kicking myself. He won't score 30 points every week, but I was giving up on him because I thought his time was up. And then the 2 top threats to his targets went out for extended period of time, and Trevillo in the NFC picked him up and has done well with him. So,
yeah, I mean, even if he probably won't score 32, but even if he sticks around what he's done week 4, week 5, he's still serviceable.
Yeah. Well, weeks in, nothing is set in stone. At this point, who do you think is for sure in the playoffs in the AFC is absolutely out of it?
In the AFC, I see the Vultures being in, the Redlegs being in. I see I haven't looked at their roster yet, but the Cox possibly, and then War Pony has made a comeback. They're on a 2-game winning streak too. So I would say that those would be my for sure's right now.
Well, Hillier is without a doubt, not making the playoffs. And Reed were the partners in the first trade to be vetoed this year. Reed was going to give up. Oh, who the hell is he going to give up? It was some bullshit. So Reed was going to trade Kyle Rudolph, Robert Woods, and Blake Bortles for Des Bryant, Joe Flacco, and Jamal Charles. I could make an argument that these, Des Bryant and Jamal Charles are injured, and so he's taking a chance or something like that. But if Hillier had said that, then I would have let it go. But trade evaluator, and it was the most lopsided trade that has ever been accepted. It was like plus 142 and minus 90 something for Hillier. And said, "Hey, what's your reasoning on this trade?" Didn't look at it, just hit He told me he didn't want to play this season. So I told Reed, and Reed called him, and Reed said that, when I talked to him, he said he was fine. Hillier is not really in it to win it this year, and that he didn't even look at the trade and didn't care. I had to veto it. They later traded Rudolph for Jamal Charles, and I think that one is reasonable enough. I wouldn't do it if I were Hillier, but he really has gotten nothing at the tight end position, and he hasn't gotten anything from Jamal Charles this whole time either. So,
yeah,
if he's one that doesn't believe the reports that Charles is finally healthy, maybe he gives up that piece and gets a good tight end. But that was the first trade in the AFC this year, the vetoed trade. Still don't think it's going to be enough to get Reed into the playoffs. I mean, it could, but he just lost so much when he lost Peterson and Woodhead. Sitting at 2-3, it's pretty rough for him. But I agree with you with the Red Legs, the Vultures. The Cox still need to make a move or two, I think. But my dark horse is Rowe again. I think Rowe's going to do really well going down the stretch. In the NFC also, I think we both agreed that the Ammo Dogs and the Roughnecks are out of it.
Yeah.
And it's not that we think they don't care. We've been snake bitten. I think the Dark Narcs are out of it. I'm never going to count Bruce out. He could make a run. He's got to do is win enough games to move up. That's not crazy. But certainly Pyle and Finch and Duffy are going to be in. I think I'll be in just because I got some cheap wins, and I'm going to have a higher win total than I should. But it's pretty wide open outside of Pyle and Finch.
I think Jessen might have a shot, and the Hippies as well. I mean, you look at their points, both of them that they've scored. I mean, they outscored me and Morgan, who are the 2 spots above them.
The Hippies are 9th, and they've outscored me, and I'm 3rd.
Yeah. So, I mean, I haven't looked at their schedule, but who knows? It might lighten up towards the end. And same thing with the Domination Station. With my issues at tight end, I'm playing for the playoffs. I would be surprised if I snuck in. But if I didn't make it, I wouldn't be. It wouldn't be a shock.
Yeah, it wouldn't be a shock if you just missed, but I do think that you'll pull through. I think that eventually you'll rise above Morgan. And I think that Cobb and Schmidt will start to settle towards the middle the further along we go. Historically, Schmidt has not maintained a playoff pace all season. And Cobb has gotten some pretty big leaks from some players in order to get where he's at. I don't think he has a very balanced roster. So I guess if I had to pick right now, it'd be Pyle, Finch, me, Duffy, you.
I would agree with all of those with the exception of me. And mainly, if you go and look at my schedule, after this week, I'm up against you, and then I have Duffy. I've got the Dogs of War, the Dirty Hippies, and the Hard Targets, all who have extremely outscored me. And then I might catch a break week 12 with the Dark Narcs, and then an easy win against the Whackers in 13.
Yeah, and while we're looking at schedule, I've got, like we said, a very dangerous 0-5 team this week in the Mo Dogs. Then I've got you, and then Morgan. Then I've got Bruce, Pyle, who, for all we know, may still be undefeated in week 10. Schmidt, who I think will not be as good by week 11. Then Jessen and Duffy. So the rest of my schedule, I've still got you, Morgan, Bruce, Pyle, Jessen, and Duffy. I think it's a pretty tough schedule coming up, with the exception of Schmidt and possibly Bruce if his injury concerns continue.
Yeah. And then, like with me, I had Domination Station in, which, depending on when they catch these guys, because after he beats the Whackers, he'll have the Hard Targets, Dogs of War, and the Hangovers, and then he'll hit an easy streak with the Roughnecks. He'll have Bruce, you in week 12, and then Rogers in week 13. So I could possibly see, like I said, Jessen slipping into that last playoff spot over someone like me, just based off schedule and stuff.
Well, Pyle, he's certainly got a tough schedule coming up, and we talked about how easy his schedule has been so far. He's got Finch this week, who is the second best team in the league. And then he's got Trevillo, the Hippies, who we both think is a very good team. They've scored more than I have. Then he gets a break with Henderson and the Dark Narcs. The Whackers, it really just depends on whether Matt Ryan has a great game. My team is always tough. I don't think it's as good as Pyle's, but it's not a gimme in week 10. Then he's got Yancey, pretty easy, followed by Duffy and Schmidt. He always loses to Schmidt. So he's got, I would say, teams that can knock him off. He's got Finch, Trevillo, Morgan, me, Duffy, and Schmidt. I wouldn't pick him to lose all 6 games, but he could certainly lose any of those 6.
Yeah. Yeah, and looking, if anyone does want to beat the Whackers, week 11, the bye week for Matt Ryan, would be the week to do it, and he has the Ammo Dogs that week.
So it doesn't really help us.
No, but I mean, as long as Morgan loses,
Yeah. Finch, he's got Pyle this week, and then Jessen, and then Schmidt, and then Trevillo, Bob, Leal, Rogers, and Yancey. So relatively easy schedule outside of Pyle, Jessen, and you. And I mean, Jessen is a maybe. He certainly has the easiest last 2 weeks of the season with Rogers and Yancey.
yeah, he does.
I mean, 3 of his last 4 is Cobb, Rogers, and Yancey. So if Finch gets a top 2 seed, he'll further his record streak of first round buys. I think he's had 3 in a row at this point. Breakthrough and 1-1. Who knows? Well, do you want to call it for the night?
Yeah, we can.
A good hour-long chat. If anyone's still with us, go check out that Fantasyland episode. It's number 9, Brothers in Arms.
Yeah, and if there's anyone from the AFC or PFC that wants to join us next week, please feel free.
Yeah. Come on the show, and I mean, we'll talk until we're blue in the face about your matchups and your playoff odds. All right, have a good night, Lil.
You too. Bye.